Welcome, everybody, to Flat Earth Nation. Mud flood was Armageddon. Don't let them tell you anything else unless they're willing to debate you in a fair and honest way. I'm going to be mirroring a video from a young man, Ben from Vat City, who I'm happy to have known for almost 3 years, 2.5 years anyway, and an excellent young philosopher, uh, documented genius. And so I'm doing my research, and I thought you might want to join along. So we'll be checking out Ben's new video without any further delay.
Um, and I might not talk through the whole thing. I'm going to show videos, and some of them might not be talking, just showing stuff. But I want to start with this, John 2:18. On account of this, the Jays demanded, "What sign can you show us to prove your authority to do these things?" Jesus answered, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up again." "This temple took 46 years to build," the Jays replied, "and you are going to raise it up in 3 days?" But Jesus was speaking about the temple of his body. After he was raised from the dead, his disciples remembered that he had said this. Then they believed the scripture and the word that Jesus had spoken. Okay, so obviously there's the first meaning, which is that the temple is your body, and about the resurrection. Jesus would be, raised from the dead, literally, bodily, after 3 days, right? The scripture is magic. It's literally alive. Okay, it's insane. The second meaning here, you see in this story, the Jays represent materialist atheists. You could say there's nothing new under the sun. Okay, in the 46 years, the temple is the body, right? So the 46 years which build the body are the 46 chromosomes of human DNA. Try not to damn cry while I'm doing this. So this is the craziest thing. The second meaning, right? You can read it, since the temple is the body, the 46 years to build, like they believe that the body is the product of the 46 chromosomes, like evolution, like they're materialist atheists. Like the body is not a product of consciousness. It's not like you can just raise your body back up. And he says, yes, I can. Because Jesus knows everything is, a product of basically him, the spirit, consciousness, and anything is possible. Because it's all actually done through the spirit, and the material causal chain is an illusion. So the 46 years, like them, they represent the materialist atheists believing in evolution, Darwinism, and materialist science. It's insane. So crazy. And Jesus is saying, no, everything is created through the spirit. Everything is created through consciousness, through belief. Reality is what you believe. That is reality. That's why it's important to believe good things. But the third meaning that I've been thinking about, and it goes back, I think, also to like temples of unhewn stone, altars of unhewn stone. And in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and he created the garden. And literally there's, I think the third meaning I've been thinking of is literally structures not built materially, but built by consciousness. So yeah, it is his body, but it's also the temple, and it's his body, and it's like so crazy. So yeah, so what I've been thinking about, a third meaning, is this also literally about not only the 46 chromosomes, but literally structures being built by consciousness. And was the garden, like Alan had talked about before, and other people, literally like structures, like he talks about in Genesis. It's like a mist. There was no man to till the earth, and and it hadn't rained yet. And it says a mist went up over the whole earth. But he says the word's actually like canals. And I was thinking the garden, it could even be some of these old structures and everything. Like everything was just set up literally like a garden, the whole world. And it's literally just all created. There's nothing natural. It's just different ages.
Oh my goodness, Ben, that could tie into the Hanging Gardens of Babylon and that Prussian connection, not Prussian, Persian, through Xerxes, Nebuchadnezzar, Darius, Cyrus, and the Magi.
And it's all creation, either created by God or by angels or by man. And the creations of man obviously are very crude. Okay, so I'm going to get into this now. These are these star holes that I find everywhere up here, okay? And these are the ones I'm going to show are close to my house, but I find them also way back in the woods where there's no civilization. Like I've hauled deer trails for miles. I'll find these things everywhere. They're perfectly smooth on the inside, okay? They're either perfectly smooth round or they're these star-shaped holes. And I've thought of they go very deep into the rock too, but they don't protrude through the other side. And originally I thought maybe it was a jackhammer bit. First of all, they're very old. You can see the lichen growth. It takes a very long time for this lichen to grow. And many of them, the lichen is growing inside the holes. The circular ones are perfectly smooth. The star ones are perfectly smooth. I thought originally, could this be a jackhammer bit, which are kind of shaped like that, which obviously I'm familiar with from work. But you would never drive a jackhammer bit in straight in and be able to get it out. The other thing is there's no explanation for these at all because they're always in the center of rocks. They never protrude through the outside, okay? And what is actually happening is rocks fracture at these points, and you'll see these holes in the middle. And I know this because when I was building houses up here, they blast these home sites out of the mountain. They blast the rock out. And this isn't from like drilling and putting dynamite in. I've thought of all of this, but they blast it out. And when the rock fractures, you find these holes inside. And I don't know what they are, but this is stone, okay? But maybe it was concrete.
Those are your veins, your arteries, your nerves, the tiny thread ligaments. There are different parts of the giant Nephilims from the previous creations, in my humble opinion.
Sometime, or I don't know what it is, but these are like molds of whatever was here, like pipes, something perfectly circular, perfectly smooth. They go very deep in, but they don't protrude out the backside ever. But a lot of times rocks will split open and you'll see in the center of them, they have these holes. Perhaps the star-shaped holes could be like a braided cable or something like that, like a really fat braided cable. You could imagine maybe it would make that shape. But I mean, it's just bizarre. It's really bizarre. They're perfectly smooth inside. I mean, I've drilled a lot of holes too. And there's always going to be tooth marks, like, spiraling, rifling, whatever you want to call it. You can tell you drilled it or jacked it with a hammer or a chipping gun or a hammer drill or whatever. There's no disguising that. And these things are not like that. And like I said, these are near my house just for convenience. But I don't bring my phone or camera with me when I go out trekking the trails and walking deer trails and crawling in thickets and way out from civilization. But you'll find these everywhere where they didn't blast. There's never been a house. There's never been anything. You'll find these all over the place. That's what I'm talking about, the star hole. There's no way to drill this out. And if you sank a bit in there, you'd never get the bit out. And they're so deep, it's ridiculous anyway. And they're everywhere. It doesn't make any sense. You see this rock. It's two halves of the same rock that fractured apart. This is just right around my house. There's at least, I don't know.
They could be hair follicles hair follicles for all we know.
4, 5, 6 of them just right around here. I found them in other places too. It's like sometimes other rocks will fall in them. It's hard to even tell how deep they are, but they never come out the other side. Very smooth on the inside. So I don't know what they are, but they're not natural. That's for sure.
Oh, yes, they
They're
are.
some kind of creation.
Oh, yeah.
All right. The next thing I'm going to show is these protrusions I've noticed in the riverbanks. Okay, this is right behind my house. This is clearly artificial. This is concrete, obviously. I don't know how old, but I'd say probably around 100 years old or over 100 years old. The house I'm in.
That probably was from an old bridge, from an old trading trail. What the movies and the westerns call them warpaths, but they were trading. You know, you had to get to the fields, you had to get to the farm somehow. That looks like a bridge to me, but not a mud flood bridge for sure.
The cabin's over 100 years old anyway. And there's no house on the other side there. I don't know why someone did this. I guess for erosion, or I wonder if these were used as canals at some point, or I don't know. It's probably between like 100 and 200 years old. But you'll find all over in these creeks, even where there's no houses, even when you go way back, you'll find like concrete. Some of it's clearly concrete, some of it's not. And a lot of it even blends in, where it's like you almost can't tell if it's concrete or stone. Like some of it's clearly concrete, some of it's clearly stone, but some of it is hard to really tell. And now I'm going down by the main river. I want to show there's these protrusions from the riverbank, not made of concrete. These are made of stone, and they're perfectly right angles, or they were. You know, you can tell at one point, and perfectly straight, like just in a way that is not natural. And not natural in a way that, I mean, people can't even do this and wouldn't do this, and it doesn't even make sense. This isn't concrete. These are stones. And I know I don't have the best videos either here. I should come back here with a drone. But if you see these things, they protrude out from the riverbank. They're perfectly straight. They're all fractured and broken up, of course. Makes me think like, yeah, like was this part of the garden? Like these part of like the star fort system? Was the whole Earth some kind of like star fort system, the garden? And when we were cast out, some kind of fall, like Solomon says, all the foundations of the earth are of course, like are these part of the foundations of the earth? It's very strange. They're perfectly, or you can see they were at least perfectly straight, perfectly square. Yeah, it reminds me of the star fort.
Yeah, I could see that. And this is how long it takes a tree to grow through it, just like in Angkor Wat. Man, he's in some rough terrain there, right?
And it reminds me of, like Alan used to say, the mist went out and covered the whole earth. It didn't rain because everything was irrigated, like it was canals. The mist, that word is like he says, an intentional mistranslation. It's really like the whole earth was irrigated by canals. These things, I'm telling you, they're stone. I'll trunch across. I'll put my river shoes on and go get up close one day, or get a drone and go out here. They're all over. They're like regular intervals along the creek bank and the river bank. It's just very strange. And I'll show later. I'll show right after this, like And there's no houses on the other side. There's no access there. Like on the side I'm standing on, there is a road along the side. But on that side, there's nothing developed. And as you get way down to where it meets the bigger river, there's a bridge that crosses. And there is artificial riprap, what they call like stones placed by humans. And I'm going to show that. I'm going to show how crude it is. Like, and the stuff that's placed by humans is obvious. It's never perfect. And once I saw this stuff, I just couldn't unsee it. Like, there's literally nothing natural. Everything is created. I don't know by who or how or what, but there is nothing natural. There's just like different ages of creation and different levels of technology. Like the creation or the technology of God or the garden or the oldest technology was obviously the most perfect and the highest, and even nature itself, like a seed or a human or animal body, is like the highest technology you could possibly imagine. Which also, brings us back to the arrogance of believing that you can improve on the human form or on nature. Okay, and this is, look, there, I went down by the bridge here where they're trying to, protect the bridge and the road here. And they do actually have access to the other side just from the bridge right here. But not way down where I'm showing all these right angle starfort points or whatever they are. I don't know what they are. But you can see the work of humans. Modern man is obviously done by modern man. It's very crude. The things that I'm talking about are indistinguishable. You know what I mean? It's insane. This is some stuff I tried to look it up just to see what they say about it. In my town, everything. There's nothing to ever say that they built these things. They didn't. It shows different kinds.
Hey, how's it going, you guys? Hey, Scotty. I just wanted to check and see if it was still streaming. Oh, it goes.
They do try and preserve the riverbank. None of it looked like these perfect star points I was showing before in the video. It all looks like either, this gravel or stone they pour, or clearly concrete steps, or it'll stack these big blocks. It's very crude. It's never these perfectly straight lines like the ones I was showing before. It's never these perfectly right angles like this. Like this is what people can do. It's nothing similar to the original creation. This is what people can do. This is what's made by modern man. It's very obvious what's made by modern man. It's unmistakable. That's what modern man makes. It's unmistakable. See, this is a riprap. Like, I was looking even in search my own town. When did they ever build these things on the riverbank? No, you can't find anything about it. Here's the bridge, and they're working right by here to try and preserve it. You can see in the water here, they built some kind of steps at some point. But it's always obvious what's done by man. These star points that I was showing are not obvious. Okay? Like these. Like these perfectly right angles. It's just totally different. They're perfect. It's completely different.
Was it just showing the same thing? And I wonder if I am still on the air. Hi, everybody. Was the Earth being? Was the video being?
It's made by modern man. It's unmistakable.
Because I think he might think he's showing pictures, but he's not. But hopefully he will get back to it. But anyway, we watch Ben for his philosophy more than anything. The pictures are still, a bonus. So stick around and we'll see what's going on. It's so wonderful to see everybody here so early.
That's what modern man makes. It's unmistakable. See, this is a rip-rap. Like, I was looking even in my right angles. It's just totally different. They're perfect. It's completely different. This. See this? Completely different. They're perfect. They're just perfect. Look at this. What is this? It's got to be like a point of a star fort or something. This is like the garden. These are the foundations of the earth that are out of course. At least that's, I'm not a geographer or a geologist or whatever. I'm just saying what I see. But I know that this is not natural. There's nothing natural here. And the last thing I want to show is the mountains themselves. I wouldn't even call them mountains. These escarpments that rise up, they're structures. 100%. You can see doors, windows in them, perfectly right angles. You can even see courses of stone. What were like courses of stone or brick or something. You can see windows and doors that are like half buried in dirt, just like the building. I think those are body parts, and someday I'll be able to prove it. I'll show the building in Philly I have too. In the basement, you go like 12 feet underground. It's just all windows and doors bricked up. These are windows and doors. Like something snapped in my brain, and I can't unsee it. I can't see it any other way. I know these are structures of some kind. None of this is natural. There's literally nothing natural in the world. Like in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. He created the earth. It's insane. It's a creation, everything. And I just keep coming to new levels of like capitulation with how literal everything is. Just like Jesus says, if you understand it like a child, you'll understand it perfectly. There is nothing occult. It's all bullshit. There's nothing hidden. There is no occult. It doesn't exist. It's all just nonsense to warp your mind and confuse you. If you just look like a child and read the scriptures like a child, it's completely plain and obvious. There's actually nothing to figure out, period. Absolutely nothing to figure out. Everything is created. There's nothing natural. The only question is, when, where, who knows? I don't even know if that's how time works. Who knows how it works. But are these the foundations of the earth that are out of course? And was maybe the whole earth a garden, a star fort system, or what have you? Look at the perfectly right angles, perfectly straight faces. And they tell you, this is how rocks form. Sedimentary rock is this kind, and igneous rock forms like this. It's the same exact thing as what they tell us about space and evolution and everything else. Have you ever seen a rock form? I mean, they're not on human timescales. The things they tell us can never be verified and are ridiculous. Have you ever seen a rock form? I mean, just if you look at it again with childlike eyes, what are stone? What is rock? What are mountain? What are these things? What is an escarpment, a cliff face that rises up? Anything. Like, you've never seen the stone form. What, there is nothing natural. It's all creation. And it's all the same nonsense to tell us about everything else.
I wouldn't be surprised if that is Ben who made this music that you're listening to right now. He does that kind of thing. And you see the bigger trees that are growing around in this area? Well, that's how long ago it happened.
The fall of man.
Okay, I was waiting to see if he said anything there, and I don't know if you heard it, but at the very end he said, "The fall of man." So we had that. So how you doing? I'm glad to see you stuck with it there, Shucksful and Scotty. Glad to see that Edna said, "Hey y'all." Nicole, hope you guys all stuck around. There's 18 people here. We'll see if I can dig up anything. I don't know what you were thinking about. Like, I wonder what I'm going to watch after that, but I know what I was thinking about. And if I can find them, we're going to be on it like that proverbial white on rice. So, un momento. I wish I could play something, but I can't search and play you a video at the same time. But it'll just take a second. Almost misspelled a word. So that one doesn't look promising right off the bat. Try this, and then one more thing. All right, stay with it now. So now we're going to get serious. Okay, so I found the one. You're gonna love this. So let's get it together. As far as remembering Ben, I first interviewed him in the summer of 2019, I think. Let's see. Got to look up where he would have this. Ooh, that's kind of long. Let's see his videos. Hang in there. It's going to be worth it. Oh, I'm getting close. Hopefully it's still up because I'm right in that area of it. This is who I'm looking at. The person we used to. I used to study Hebrew from him. It's how I can. So you can blame him. I don't show him. He kind of went a little bit white power for me. But I haven't heard him, in a long time. but I don't want to play something I haven't heard in case of that. So that's the background on that. Well, this one, I don't know if this is the one. So I'll tell you, I'll keep that there for just one more minute. But there's some other good stuff that he's done. Hiding America. Wow. He did a big series on that. Well, let's go back to the one I was looking at then. And I guess you can, we'll get your opinion on that. Now, let me find the one I wanted. New Testament quotes in Old Testament.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to, it's going to be part 3 now of examining New Testament passages in an Old Testament context. It's 6:04 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, July 30th, 2018, I'm told. I'm going to bring up the table, and we had left off last time with the quote from Matthew 2:18. Most of these quotes, the early quotes, are coming from Matthew because of what material is being covered in Matthew. We're getting the highest density early on from Matthew. There are going to be some questions, just, some basic rhetorics that I'm going to ask concerning this material as we go. And yeah, there's definitely a marked reason for it, because I think that although what we see in a number of these quotes is we see a problem in understanding the context, because the context that we're frequently looking back to and examining, it doesn't seem to follow with the context that these passages are in. What does that say exactly? I don't know. I'm not too sure. But that's what we're seeing. And I would like to understand what the problem is. If the problem is just me, or if the problem is perhaps our understanding in general. Maybe the overall idea, messages, and messengers of Yahweh as represented in the Old Testament. Maybe that's just not the understanding that we're seeing reflected in a great portion of what we have in Greek copies of the New Testament. And remember, there are a number of Aramaic copies as well that in a number of ways disagree with the Greek. As to even in light of these things, that I'm going over, I still think there's plenty of evidence that attests to the messiahship of Yoshu of Nazareth, the one who himself said that he was the Son of the living God, the Redeemer, and is shown in his life, his ministry, death and resurrection. Whether you choose to believe it or not, I can't imagine that many people who don't believe it would be listening to this, but hey, I listen to atheists that talk about a lot of these matters or Bible matters in general, because I want to hear both sides and what they have to say. And I found that, frequently your average Christian wouldn't even want to approach and try to deal with these texts and these matters. So before I even read, starting at Matthew 3:3, this next quote, I just want to voice my sincere thanks to those individuals who have gone out of their way to try to help me as I am really struggling to live. And the current condition I'm in is definitely it's going to want to keep me from being able to do work even in the capacity that I've been able to do it, unfortunately. So thank you again, and thank you everyone who has been praying for me and my family. I can't say it enough or with enough sincere emotion to illustrate to you how grateful I am. I'm also grateful that two very intelligent men have decided to offer a lot of material on both sides of this issue with Anatoly Fomenko and his maximum correlation principle, and the issue of the timeline in general. And yeah, guys like Scaliger are at the heart of that, and misconceptions concerning science are also to be blamed. And of course, it's full spectrum, isn't it? Because it can't just be one individual factor that anyone would have to distort to change our perceptions of where and when we are. It'd have to be many things. So we're getting there, and more material is going to be presented on that as time goes and as the Father's willing. So beginning in Matthew 3:3, this is a very well-known quote in Mark and Luke and John. In that's straight. Now, I've reviewed the Old Testament passage, and it is the way of Yahweh. Mark 1:3 says, the voice of one crying in the midbar, the wilderness. You don't have to think of deserts. It's the midbar. It's just the wild. The voice of one crying in the wild. Prepare ye the way of Yahweh. Make his path straight. And that is important because, like I said, all of us have been programmed in one way or another since we're very young, of course, to look at this whole situation and this God as sort of the bleak, arid desert God. In fact, I'm told that a number of individuals of other religions call our God, Yahweh, the desert God. As it is written in the book of the words of Isaias, this is from Luke 3:4-6, Isaias or Yeshua the prophet, saying, the voice of one crying in the wild, prepare you the way of Yahweh, make his path straight. Every valley shall be filled, every mountain and hill shall be brought low. The crooked shall be made straight, the rough ways shall be made smooth, and all flesh shall see the salvation of Elohim. And then in John 1:23, he said, I am the voice of one crying in the wild, make straight the way of Yahweh, as said the prophet Yeshua. Okay. So we have 4 parallel passages from the 4 extant canonized gospels that agree, and their source is universally accepted and also stated in the text as being Yeshua or Isaiah 40:3-5. And I want to make sure that I've also got an Obri version of that opened. I went over this a lot the other day. I had begun making a video, and my son had a lot of trouble sleeping, so that video just was not going to happen. So I just scrapped it and started again. That's what I normally do. If I can't get through it in one sitting, even if I have to stop and start a little bit, I just usually scrap it. So, again, right? We always want to look at it context. I'm in Brenton's. I can stay in Brenton's. I just want you to know that I'm in the Septuagint. Okay, so the thing is, if you go to the chapter before, it is right after the king Hezekiah is recovered from an illness that he had and told by Yeshua the prophet that he would be given another 15 years. And he had these envoys come from Babylon, and he decided to show them all of the riches and wealth and power and strength that the kingdom of Judah had to offer. And that one always vexed me. Why on earth, what you're just showing off? I thought to myself, this guy, what is he doing? I mean, is he boasting? Right after, I would just imagine after my life would be miraculously saved by the living God, Yahweh, I just couldn't see myself. Maybe he was just, everybody's experienced that, where they're kind of on a high and they're not thinking straight or right. Anyways, yeah, he shows them all the wealth of Judah. And I mean, if you're looking at another kingdom that might have some strength and might really want to acquire such wealth, it seems to me like you're just inviting trouble. Anyway, so, Yeshua asked him, what did you do? What did you show them? And he told them. And starting in Isaiah 39:5, it says, and Isaiah said to him, hear the word of Yahweh Tsebaoth, or of hosts. Tsebaoth is like hordes or armies. And it's first used in, I believe it's Genesis 2, the first verse, all the hordes of the Shemaim and Arets. Anyways, so Isaiah 39:6, behold, the days come when they shall take all the things that are in your house and all that your fathers have gathered until this day shall go to Babel, and they shall not leave anything at all. And Elohim hath said that they shall take also of thy children whom you shall beget, and they shall make them eunuchs. in the house of the king of, it says the Babylonians, so I have to look at the underlying text and see if that's actually the Kashdim, because those people that had their capital at Babel were called the Kashdim. So it goes on, and Hezekiah said to Isaiah, "Good is the word of Yahweh which he has spoken. Let there, I pray, be peace and righteousness in my days." Well, there's a guy who's definitely forward thinking, concerned about his children and grandchildren. Gets me. So then it goes on. Remember, these chapter and verse stops were not put in by the authors, so somebody put this in afterwards. But sometimes the authors, they do stop a thought and, start up something else. So Yeshua 40:1. Comfort ye, my people, saith Elohim. Speak, ye priests, to the heart of Jerusalem. Comfort her, for her humiliation is accomplished. Her sin is put away, for she has received of Yahweh's hand double the amount of her sins. The voice of one crying in the wilderness, prepare ye the way of Yahweh, make straight the paths of our Elohim. Every valley shall be filled, every mountain and hill shall be brought low, and all the crooked ways shall become straight, and the rough places plains. And the glory of Yahweh shall appear, and all flesh shall see the salvation of Elohim, for Yahweh has spoken it. Now it continues, the voice of one saying, cry. And I said, what shall I cry? All flesh is grass, and all the glory of man is the flower of grass. The grass withers and the flower fades, but the word of our Elohim abides forever. And there's quite a lot of prophetic poetry after this, from 40 in verse 9 all the way out to 40 in verse 31. Of course, one of the verses in here is used a lot in the arguments between flat earthers and sphere earthers, right? Isaiah 40:22. It's he that comprehends. Now, this is in Brenton Septuagint. This translation. It's he that comprehends the circle of the earth, and the inhabitants in it are as grasshoppers. He has set up the heaven as a chamber and stretched it out as a tent to dwell in. That's very interesting. Anyways, and then one of my favorites is the final verse. They that wait on Elohim shall renew their strength. They shall put forth new feathers like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not hunger. KJV says faint. Now I'm going to the KJV version so you can see such similarities, and they are, between KJV and Brenton's. Isaiah 40:3, the voice of him that cries in the wilderness, prepare you the way of Yahweh, make his straight in the, and this is Oreb, all right, not desert. There's actually there's no one that could prove that Oreb should be translated as desert. Make straight in the Oreb, or plains, a highway for our Elohim. Every valley shall be exalted, every mountain and hill shall be made low, and the crooked shall be made straight, the rough places plain, and the glory of Yahweh shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together, for the mouth of Yahweh has spoken it. So contextually, no one, I don't think, could really make a case to the one way or to the other way. I don't believe so. And I think what we're seeing here, and I've read it through in the Obri, the only thing I say is odd is the fact that Yeshua 43 in the Obri starts out Kura instead of Kra, which would be more appropriate, as in to call. The idea of crying, I know that in modern English we think of crying as weeping. Cool sound, and then the QRA would be a call. And this actually has an extra oo, so-called vowel, an extra oo between the Q and the R, and that only happens a couple of times with all of the occurrences of QRA, kura, as call, and that can't be on accident. Like as some people say, the Isaiah scroll, right, from the Dead Sea Scrolls. A lot of people use that to try to show that a number of the textual particularities, specifically in Isaiah, are just either scribal missteps, or that they don't matter. And I disagree. I think every character that is used in the way that it is used matters. Whether we do or do not understand why it would be there and what it is doing specifically to the word there, it matters. So it says in Midbar, and as I said, the Midbar should in no way be construed as deserts, neither should Orbe. One reason, another name for evening is Orab. Orab is used for a number of things. You'll find Orab and Orabe all over the place when Yishrael is actually in the area of Moab before they are entering into the land of promise over Yarden. And as I said, there's no other parallel word, as many different uses as Orbe has, to indicate that it would be desert. So again, I would say the plains. There is another word that I believe is very good for meadows. And in fact, very frequently, the King James translators and many, many, many others will take this word orbe and they will translate it as plain. But here they decided that John the Baptist and forward thinking, I suppose, to Yeshua, because remember, these translations are coming from people who have hit both Old and New Testament. So they could go back and forth making the translations fit as they wished. But in many other places, Orbe is translated as a plain. And a plain is not a desert. A desert is something specific. A plain, what is a plain? Well, in America, we have a few states like South Dakota, Iowa, Kansas, Nebraska, that are called the Great Plain States, because they are loaded with Great Plains, and I have driven through a number of them, and they are the Great Plains. You know what a plain is. And consider the fact that Oreb is also the word used for evening. And Boker, the word commonly used for cattle, is also used as morning. It's in Genesis 1, Boker and Oreb. Now, it's so interesting. The next word is this masle. The reason I find it interesting is the context that masle is used in. And the root mas and what you can find root-wise for le Oftentimes it is translated as highway. And I think it's interesting because I think we should actually view it as a highway, not just a,
like those roads the star forts had leading to them.
a path. Let's just say not just a path that many people have used. And so it could be designated as, a highway, but a great broad road built for and maintained specifically by the Melech or king or Paroa or whomever the leader is, because they call them different things in different places. Remember, Shechem, his father was Hamor. It's very interesting how these different leaders, the name of their status or station is similar to or equivalent to names of various animals. Anyways, I'll continue with this. So I would say this Maslays, I think it's very appropriate to look at it as a specifically built, leveled, even highway for travel. Is it like the highways we have today with blacktop and, I'm not saying that. But whatever materials they used and engineering they used, this, I believe, would be like a dedicated highway in the plain, a highway to Alainu, our Alaim. And then the Obri in 40 and 4, it reflects pretty well what we're seeing from the English translations. I don't think it's necessarily saying the things that we see translated into English in exactly the way that we see them being said. But I think that we're looking at the right idea.
I think so too. I hope you're enjoying this so far. I mean, I myself probably using it, going over extra words myself. So I just wanted to make sure everything's still going. Keep taking your silver, keep hanging in there. We're listening to the guy that used to teach Hebrew. He learned it in jail, for crying out loud. He went a little bit white power, so we kind of split our ways, but I'm telling you, he was full of the spirit there for a while, and probably still is. His health has never been well, but glad you're still here. So here we go. Let's finish it up. We've still got the connection.
A sort of evenness that works. So at this point in time, even though a lot could be said about the translations of the prophets, and I'm sure I will have a lot to say about that as time goes on. All in all, I don't know that one could say one way or another whether that is appropriately applied or not. Perhaps it is. But I don't see a contextual problem. I don't know that I see anyone pulling that per se from context. Not in the ways I've seen some of the passages up till now. The next is Matthew 4:4, and then 4:6 and 4:7. These are basically when there is this scene being played out of Yusho in the midbar, and he's been fasting for 40 days, and he is quite thirsty. And it says that, well, let's go to Matthew 4. Okay. Yeah, it says he's led in the spirit into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil, Diablos. You know that Satan's also used in the New Testament. And you know that Shaitan in the Old Testament, it doesn't even show up until, I think it's Numbers 22. And it doesn't have the context you would think of as like the great Satan, you know, all red with horns and a bifurcated tail, toting a pitchfork. It's not like that. It means to adversary, Shaitan. So in here, yeah, the Greek would be rendering it Diablos. So there's this scene between this Diablos and Yusho in the midbar. And Diablos is questioning him and tempting him. Right? It even says right here, Matthew 4:3, when the tempter came to him, he said, "If you be the Son of God, command that these stones be made bread." And he answered and said, "It is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every matter," it says in here, word, krima, "that proceeds from the mouth of God." You'll find that from Deuteronomy. And I think that's interesting. Deuteronomy 8:3. Just going to take a look at it real fast because TSK is really interesting. Hopefully I can apply something here. So we're at Deuteronomy 8:3. All right. But by all, it doesn't say word that precedes. All right. By all. And then it's Mutsa, by all that goes forth from the mouth. And you see in the text, it's actually Yahweh. I don't know why that matters. Well, there's a reason. And I've illustrated this in the past. Tempter had come to him, "If you be the Son of God." Everything that proceeds out of the mouth of God. Theos. The problem is you're going to see as we go that that Theos, it's used for both Yahweh and Elohim. Those are different. Elohim is title. Yahweh is name. It is a descriptive name, nonetheless, but you will find, as you track through New Testament quotes of Old Testament passages, the authors, if they really had written this in Greek, why would they not distinguish between Yahweh and Elohim? Oh, yes, Yahweh is Elohim. However, there is enough of a distinction that I would think the New Testament writers would make that distinction. That is why I think that the New Testament was not written in Greek, not the original autographs. So I did think one was really interesting, though. Matthew 4:7. This is when Diablos is to have taken him up to it says he took him up to the holy city and he set him on the pinnacle of the temple. And he said to him, if you be the Son of God, cast yourself down, for it is written, he shall give his angels charge concerning you. And in their hands they shall bear thee up, lest at any time you dash your foot against a stone. Diablos said, it is written about you. They'll actually give this. And I can jump back to it real quick. So it's Matthew 4:7. Because TSK isn't giving me it not quickly enough. No. Yeah, here we go. Psalm 90. This is an important psalm, actually, because it's saying that Diablos is saying to him, pay attention, that it's written of you. Okay? I'm just going to read this. I'll read it in KJV. I'll probably change the these and thous a little bit, but you'll get the idea. And I want you to listen to it and consider what it is that the psalmist is saying. I had to truncate that real quick because I found out that I was reading the wrong psalm. So I had actually gone into that and read up to that point, realized that I was reading the wrong psalm. I apologize. It's actually in the KJV, it's 91, and it's 90 in Brenton's Septuagint. I was wondering about that because I'd gone over that psalm just the other day, and I thought it's not making any sense. Okay. So just consider who the psalmist is speaking to. I'll read it from the KJV, which is based on I guess the Masoretic, which would be Leningrad. But Psalm 91:1, he that dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of Yahweh, he's my refuge and my fortress, my Elohim, and him will I trust. Surely he shall deliver thee from the snare of the fowler and from the noisome pestilence. He shall cover thee with his feathers, and under his wings shall you trust. His truth shall be thy shield and buckler. Thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow that flies by day, nor for the pestilence that walks in darkness, nor for the destruction that wastes at noonday. 1,000 shall fall at your side, and 10,000 at your right hand, but it shall not come near you. Only with your eyes shall you behold and see the reward of the wicked, because you have made Yahweh, which is my refuge, even the Most High, your habitation. There shall no evil befall thee, neither shall any plague come near your dwelling. For he shall give his angels charge over you, and keep you in all your ways. They shall bear you up in their hands, lest you dash your foot against a stone. You shall tread upon the lion and the adder, the young lion and the dragon shalt thou trample underfoot. Because he has set his love upon me, therefore will I deliver him. I will set him on high, because he's known my name. He shall call upon me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. With long life will I satisfy him and show him my salvation. So in that account, Diablos said, it is written about you. And then we go back here to Psalm 91, 11, and 12 in the Masoretic KJV, and in Brenton's, it would be 90, 11, and 12. It better be. I'm on 90, and I'm in Brenton. Oh, now I'm just ticked. Hang on. It's 91, 11, and 12 in Brenton. Sorry. Didn't change over fast enough. Same thing. He'll give his angels charge concerning you to keep you in all your ways. They shall bear you up in their hands, lest at any time you dash your foot against a stone. If you take that out of context, it could be referring to anyone. All I'm asking is, in context, is that something that seems clear to me? And I hate to say it, it's not as clear. There's a guy that wrote a book that somebody in a Bible study that I used to attend a long time ago, he used to use it as part of this series that he was doing in this Bible study cell group. It was called Jesus on Every Page. And you guys can't understand the reservations I have about minimizing the messiahship of Yeshua. I really do. But I'm just trying to be entirely honest and tell you that there are certain things I'm not seeing, and I never have. I've never understood a lot of these contextual problems, especially when people who are, let's say, they're debating specific doctrines, passages. And I know that contextually, they're at least confusing to me. And these folks, when they debate these topics, they're not slow to call those who disagree with their assessment or of facts heretics. They're not slow or timid about doing that.
That's me.
And, if they're going to base a lot of the weight of their argument on passages which I think they're difficult to understand when you put them back in their context, how can they run around calling other people heretics?
Nobody just runs around calling other people heretics. That just doesn't happen. Not in my world, anyway.
I listened for a long time when I was gradually disbecoming a Trinitarian. I listened to a lot of debates between Trinitarians and Unitarians. There's a lot of different kinds of Unitarians, by the way. And so they're not all created equal. They all have very different beliefs too. But it was amazing to me that most of the Trinitarians, this is funny, how far back it goes with the Trinitarians being so vicious in their attacks towards non-Trinitarians, verbally vicious. I've heard more from the Trinitarian camp towards the non-Trinitarian camp. We'll say non-Trinitarians because there could be a lot of things that are non-Trinitarian. You could be Unitarian, you could be Binitarian, you could be modalist. I mean, there are a number of people in CI that believe
modalists are heretics.
That Yeshua is Yahweh in the flesh, the very one and only, the one the same. The great Elohim, Yahweh, in a bodily form, period.
Amen.
So not all non-Trinitarians are the same whatsoever. But it's surprising to me that a number of these passages that I think are not as clear as maybe other people think they are, they're used all the time by Trinitarians. The same kind of people that are so quick to call others heretics. I don't like that word. That word heretic is usually preceded by some bad things going down towards those people that were called heretics, Hey, folks, my son is up, so I'm going to wrap this up. But I am going to pick up next time with the quote where he is in the synagogue in Galil. And it's very interesting when we go back to the source text and what we see there. I'm going to leave you hanging on that because it's very telling.
Man, did you get left hanging? How'd you like that? Pretty good. Welcome, Dwayne. Welcome, constant companion. So glad to see you guys here. Let's see. I'll find another. Since so many people are enjoying his relaxing voice on this morning, we'll find another one from around that same era. And I'm telling you, I paid a lot of attention to what he was saying. We didn't end up agreeing because, like I said, he learned his Hebrew in prison, and he kind of brought some of that identity movement out with him. So let's see. This sounds interesting.
For the PDF version of this presentation, please visit obryproject.info. That's obryprojekt.info. This article, as well as other articles, Obry materials, and links are available on the resources page. While you're there, if you believe in this monumental...
No, I don't think you want to watch a PDF. Let's see.
Hey everyone, it's 5:47 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, December 23, 2018, I'm told. I'm going to continue with some material that actually relates a lot to the last video I made, which is Euphrates Perath. Now, I had a comment in there, somebody who's from Perth, I'm assuming Perth, Australia, and just looking at the word itself, I suppose Perath could be pronounced Perth. A lot of those obligatory vocalizations between consonants, they're hard to prove. It's one of the reasons I think that so many get behind this idea that the Masoretes, the Masoretic rabbis, standardized the language. And if you believe that, then you also have to believe that all of their contradictions that are carried by their nikudot are okay. They're just fine. You also have to deal with the fact that now if you're taught Hebrew today, let's say you're not taught it from the Bible, you live in occupied Palestine and you're Jew and you're taught Hebrew, and you're going to be taught a system of Hebrew today that does not work with the Masoretic system applied to Scripture. Now, it works some of the time, but it by no means works all of the time. And they have to, the rabbis who are sort of still apologists for Masoretic Hebrew instead of Obry, they have to make up a lot of reasons for why their Masoretic Hebrew doesn't always work in Scripture. It's not all that dissimilar to what the Greek scholars have to contend with when trying to explain why modern Greek does not reflect this Greek that they tell us the New Testament was originally written in. Yeah. So I put in a response to one of the comments in the last video that I had made a mistake about Hamath, that it wasn't on the sea, but it was towards the east side of the border as described in both Numbers 34 and Ezekiel 47 and 48. Now, all of the same places are not mentioned or listed in both of those passages that I just mentioned. But there are enough to know that we are talking about the same boundaries. Well, when I said that I had made a mistake, I didn't, because Hamath is said in Scripture to be on the sea, because you have to go up the coast of Ayam Gadul, so the sea, the great sea, until you come to Hamath. Now I can show you this. So when describing the west side of this new layout in Ezekiel 47 and 48, it is the best way I can describe it. It is a layout of inheritance for the 12 tribes, with Joseph getting a double portion. And this is long after the house of Israel is carried away by multiple enemies. This timeline of events seems to be another one of those things that are just kind of implanted in our heads. When prophets long after the house of Israel, ye can figure all tribes that aren't Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, they call them. It's Louis. All tribes that aren't them were officially put away by Yahweh, as recorded in the book called Hosea. His name is actually virtually the same as Joshua, the successor of Moses, whose name is the same as our Messiah or Mashiach, Yeshua. This is in the book of, it's very close. It just doesn't have the Y at the beginning, Yeshua. It's recorded in the book that he wrote. Yisrael, all of those tribes, which are not the three that I just named, essentially, they're carried off. Here and there, the king of Ashur, he kind of did it in stages, tribe by tribe, city by city. And, his campaigns in the land lasted a long time. So this is sort of a new layout given at the end of Ezekiel. Now, this is after some very, very eschatological passages like Ezekiel 38 and 39, totally end time stuff. And it says right in there, end time stuff. Doesn't say stuff. However, with as large and variegated a language as I see Obri to be, in direct contrast to Hebrew, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a word just for stuff. So in this eschatological border description, it does say, in the English, it would say the west side also shall be the great sea, from the border till a man comes over against Hamath, or in the Obri, La Bua Hamath, which you're going to see it almost all the time as La Bua or Mabua Hamath, an entrance to Hamath. So, and Hamath is also referred to, as I've said before, as Rabeh, Hamath Rabeh, greater Hamath, just like Zidun is referred to as Sidun Rabeh, greater Sidon, a large area, not consisting of far more land than just a city. And honestly, what city can thrive without a great deal of land to be farmed or for cattle to graze? Probably very few. I would say one that could thrive without all of that, but as soon as you take their trade away, they're dead, would be like Tsur, which is also often translated as Tyr or Tyrus, because they were at the entrance of the sea. Now, the way I see it, based on all the descriptions of where Tsur is said to be, that Tsur was not only at the entrance of the sea, because come on, lots of cities can be at the entrance of the sea. We've got to think this through. We've got to think through why Paro and Nekeh would have come up to take the city that he took. I believe it's Ribla. I'm almost positive. I've got more notes here on this whole problem with Parath than you can imagine. Okay, Ribla. Yeah, city he took. And I went over the descriptions of the border from Ezekiel last time that is describing a city that is on the other side of the border to Damshak. So there's obviously something separating them. And I'm here to tell you that I believe it is the Parath. It is a river that's actually separating them. I think the Parath, probably sometime shortly after Damshak, I guess going eastward against its natural flow, it would bend itself southward. And I think it would bend itself southward at least to this Ribla. And that's why Paro Nekeh set up his base of operations at this Ribla, because Ribla is the second city described as you would go southward. I'm going to see if I can actually just show you that real quick, because I can't remember if it's in the description of Ezekiel or if it's in the description in Numbers. All right, so it is Numbers 34. Starting at Numbers 34:10, and it said, "You shall point out your east border from Hatzor Oinan to Shephem." Hatzor Oinan is the city that I just mentioned in Ezekiel 47. It's in 48 too, where it says that it's directly bordering Damshak. It's in 48:1. But 48:17, from the sea, Hatzor Oinan, it is the Gabul border of Damshak. Okay. And the northward border of Hamath. So in some way, these are all bordering one another. One of the most interesting things is trying to figure out how everything borders each other. If we had a map to work from, I'm sure it would all make sense, but we actually, in a sense, we have to create this map. So in Numbers 34:11, it says, "And the Gabul, the border." I don't know why they keep putting coast, because you always think of a sea, don't you, when you think coast? Mostly you should think water, though, because mostly it's water that acts as borders. "And the Gabul, it shall go down from Shephem to Ribla, on the east side of Oin." So anyways, "it shall go and is reach unto the side of Yem Kanruth." Now, it doesn't say Yem, and that's what's bothered me for a while. I have to look at it very close, and they don't list these things together like they do other things. They just list Yem as 3220. It's like thousands of listings, and sometimes it's west, sometimes it's sea, preceded by an E, a Yem. You'll see that when a Yem Gadul is used, or let's see. Like you'll see it in verses where it's Um, I'm sorry, where it's described as the western border, and it might just be right up here that I can show you. Yeah, right here. I'm sorry, in Numbers 34:6, um, Gabul, the border, Yam, west, and then it'll say, and will be to you. Now here, Yam, Gadul, the sea. But when we talk about Kunruth, it's not Yam, just Yam Kunruth. So is that West Kunruth? You see? There's problems. Unfortunately, the problems are massively compounded by all of the very bad translations that not only did the King James translators do, but pretty much just about every Bible since. And Bibles that don't include those terrible translations are often shunned, paid no attention to by the establishment. Go figure. People that most of the people that you and I know in greater Christianity trust. They trust these people that are teaching out of these very corrupt translations. So Ribla's kind of the first stop as you're going down from the east. So the way I would picture it is that you would have a bend in the Ner Parath there, and it would go down and hit at least Ribla. And I think that is Parath that's hitting Ribla there. I think Parath from that area of Hatzor Oinan and Damshak is heading either due west or pretty darn good westward, like from there over to the Great Sea, Ayem Agadul. And that at the mouth of this great river is where, for one thing, Tsur would be. And it seems like Tsur would be on a sort of isthmus, or I should say, a bit of a peninsula in the sea. Now, we can see these in a number of coastal areas where a river creates a great mouth there at the sea. And, and there's sometimes this huge estuary where the river's mouth hits the sea. And there are cities where they kind of jut out into that, and they actually have a fantastic border, very, very strong border, probably stronger than cities that have rivers as borders, because they have a river and then they have the sea, and only a narrow stretch of land where an enemy could attack them from, and they can reinforce that and defend that very easily. It's very hard to invade a well-fortified city by sea. Just ask the people who occupied Constantinople forever. Now, I won't harp on this forever, but I can tell you that there are at least a few cities along the western coast of the United States that have land areas at the mouth of a river that make really fantastic, very defensible borders, and areas like, from the Seattle and Vancouver area down to the mouth of the Columbia River, down to the mouth of the Sacramento River at San Francisco. There's a lot of places where a river dumps out into the Pacific that you have on the north side of that river, or south side, any side of that river, a chunk of land that is either sort of a peninsula or even an island, very close to an island with just a very small strip of land to get to it. Very defensible. So that's what I believe Tsur was. It was right at the mouth of the Parath. And then Greater Sidon would have been just south of the river. Then you have a lot of various cities that are along the river until we get to that area where Damshek and this Hutzar Oinen are on opposing sides of the river. There, it seems like it has a bend southward. And at another strategic point is where Ribla is. Because when Peroe Necha goes up to fight against Ashur at the Parath, first off, he defeats the king of Judah, Joash, at what we get translated Megiddo, Magadoo, or Magadun, on his way there. And if you think of where Magadoo is, as far as where it's described, in what tribe, you'll find that in Joshua. Check Joshua 19. 16 through 19. That'll give you the descriptions of the tribal boundaries. It would seem that Magadoon would kind of be on your way there to get to this Ribla, and that it would be on the Parath. So the question is this: when we think about, would the Parath be directly at the northern border of the promised land, as Yahweh said their border would be from the Parath down to the Ner or Nahal Mitzrim? Would it be there at that northern border like that? Or would it be a couple hundred miles northeast of what we think of as the Promised Land in Palestine today? I mean, because we know that if we look at a map of Syria, they always translate Damshak as Damascus. And we know that it can't quite possibly be Damascus that, the Parath is running through. They tell us that the Parath is the Euphrates. The Euphrates is up here. This is the Euphrates. Now I want you to consider something. Let's put some of these problems aside. And there are a lot of problems, but let's go ahead. And let's say this Peroe Necha, that he came out of Egypt, and that Egypt was Mitzrayim, which there's no historical proof of that at all, by the way, none. Let's just say he came out of there, and he marched his army all the way upland, first off through this whole rough, kind of horrible desert, and then he managed to get this big army kind of woven through all of the strong cities that were still left, and most of them being occupied by Ashur, by the way. And if they weren't being occupied by Ashur, and if they were still occupied, because he moved in a lot of foreign peoples all over the place, they wouldn't be friendly to him marching his army up through here. But he got his army up somehow, and he ends up at Parath, that they tell us is Euphrates. This is Euphrates. Euphrates starts up here in modern day Turkey. It has a few reservoirs along the way. Big one here. Goes down through a lot of places that I'm not even going to try to pronounce. Hits Baghdad, down, and dumps out into the Persian Gulf. That's the Euphrates. So we're to believe that Ashur, even though at the time Ashur is occupying these tribal inheritances, they're occupying the tribal inheritances at the time. He's going to go and fight against Ashur up here. He's going to go up here, okay? That's what he's going to do. Now, not only is he going to go and fight against Ashur up here, which I don't know what the point is, because if we're told that Ashur, or as they translated, Assyria, that their great city, Nineveh, or as they translate it, Nineveh, was around near this modern day Mosul, wouldn't this already be like their land anyways? Anyways, putting that aside, Jake, so we're to believe that he goes up here to the Euphrates to fight the king of Ashur, and he obviously wins because he sets up shop at the Euphrates. Now the thing is, once he sets up shop at the Euphrates, he starts making judgments. He's got some power over the king of Judah, who's down here in Jerusalem. How is it him winning against the king of Ashur up at the Euphrates gives him this power and control over the king at Jerusalem, supposed to be down here? How is it Jeremiah the prophet is told to go and hide a belt?
I want to jump in just for 1 second and remind you that what I teach is that the Mississippi River is the real Nile, and the real Nile is the Euphrates.
By the Parath, and it's supposed to be Euphrates, and he travels all the way up here to hide it, and then to go and dig it up. All that over a belt? I mean, that's a long way to travel. I'm not saying he wouldn't. Prophets would travel. Have word of God will travel. I just use the word God. I try not to. So we're going to suspend disbelief, and we're going to suspend a lot of the other information that we have that would tell us that Parath is not Euphrates, and that Parath is actually quite close, and it defines their northern border, just as it was promised to them at least 3 times. We'll suspend all of that, and we'll say that Paro-Nekeh comes all the way up here to fight the Malach, or king of Ashur, somewhere in here. Let's say somewhere in here, because, Euphrates kind of starts up here in Turkey, in the mountains, modern-day Turkey. And then there's a large estuary of it here. And then there's pretty much river that runs down through here. It is not a great, mighty river that runs down through here then to Baghdad. It's a decent river, don't get me wrong. So let's just say that. Let's say he's going to take it somewhere in this area of Euphrates, right? Well, here's my big problem with that. Why? It is in a king's best interest. Anybody who has rule over a country or an empire, a civilization, whatever, a city-state, I don't care. It's in their best interest to expand their power. They're not going to invade a place that is poor, has little to no resources, because if you think about the resources that they have to expend in their army, because you go and fight a battle. He went and fought a battle against the king of Ashur, who was about the strongest king around at this time. Although Nebuchadnezzar would actually become the real power of this area 4 years later, Ashur was very powerful, very strong, had a rough reputation, but he's taking his army up, and he's going to fight this king. So you've got to figure he's going to be looking at a lot of losses. And you're not going to take any place. You're not going to expend, because the march, mustering your army, the march, the battle itself, all of that it's going to be expensive. It's not cheap to wage war. It's expensive. If you wage war, if any nation wages war without quite a prize on the other side of that they're expecting to achieve, I don't know what they're doing. Unless we're talking about a war of morality, they're defending somebody else who's being oppressed, okay? Paro Necho is not doing that. He's trying to expand his empire. He doesn't care. He does not care if Israel's being oppressed or anybody else. He's trying to expand his empire. So he's going to need to take a place that's going to give him a lot of revenue. That's what you want. If you ever find yourself the king or emperor of a nation or an empire, and you want to increase your empire, you're going to have to definitely look for places to control that give you a lot of income. That's what you want. You want income. You want increased wealth, you see. So what kings will do, or leaders will do, that want to increase their power and their wealth, is they want to take a place that is going to really increase their revenue. You want to increase your revenue. So you want to control places that are rich in revenue, whether or not, like the communists are doing in South Africa today, where they're doing this whole ruse with, the blacks want back the land that they didn't live in at the time that the Dutch wars came there. They're riling them up. This is what was happening in the U.S. in the 70s. The American Indians were being riled up like that. Give us this land, give us that land. And the same people are behind it, because these same people who have occupied Palestine for all these years, one of their first goals was to control the Suez Canal. You know why? Lots and lots of money. Canal fees, especially in the really, really strategic canals like the Suez, like the Panama Canal, those fees are up there. You would not even believe it. When you wonder why you're paying so much for something that's imported, think canal fees. That's why it was so important for these gangsters to get a real strong foothold over here, because one thing they could control is the Suez. They do, by the way. So that's what you want. You want to control things like that. That's what Paro Necho would have wanted. He would have wanted to control. Well, if you take the Euphrates up here, you got to figure it flows from up in the mountains of Turkey. It flows southward through Baghdad, and if what they tell us is true, Babel, or Babylon, which, by the way, it's never called Babylon or Babylon in the Bible, it's Babel, would have been on this river before you would get to the Persian Gulf. We're taking their map, their story, their theory, okay? The Euphrates all flows south into the Persian Gulf, and you would have had Babel, as well as probably a few other cities, wouldn't you? So even if this area here had resources and stuff that this Paro Necho wanted, he would have to ship it all down through all kinds of enemy territory, and they're going to be taxing him. How would that work out good for him? You don't want to get some area. You're not going to go to war against the most powerful, and Ashur was the most powerful empire at the time, to take control of a river that you have to go hundreds and hundreds of miles down this river through all kinds of enemy territories. There's cities controlling it to get out to open sea. That's nuts. That's stupid. What are you going to gain? He's not going to get out to open sea any other way. He's going to have to get out that way. And I don't even know if the Euphrates is big enough in this area to do much merchant shipping on it out there. Okay. However, to me, this would be smart. And I really can't do it here because we don't have, this isn't the right map. This isn't the right map at all. Let's just take, and I'm not even, don't anybody accuse me of saying that I'm saying, this is right now. Okay. I'm just using something that I have maybe for an example. Okay. That's all I'm doing. Don't get it stuck in your head that I'm saying this is. Okay. But let's take something like this. Okay. This is the area of Oregon where the Columbia River flows, and they say the Snake flows into it there. Now, has the Columbia River been affected or changed in time by the Army Corps of Engineers or the Snake River? I wouldn't be surprised. You got Grand Coulee up here. Army Corps of Engineers have changed this country around so much. I don't even know how many rivers here still bear the same semblance that they once did. But all I'm saying is this. Let's just take this kind of as an example, okay? Let's say you had a river that's flowing out to the sea, which the Parath would. If it is where, in fact, it's supposed to be, which is at the northern boundary of the land promised to the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Say it's flowing out to the sea. Now, yeah, you would have this huge mouth, and you would have maybe a city or two that were controlling the mouth of it here. That's true. However, if you had a lot of Parath before that, let's just say you had a lot of lands all the way over to the east, and these lands, they were rich in all kinds of different minerals, ores, jewels, livestock, you name it, and they're shipping it. And they're shipping it by river, which is the way that everybody shipped things, by river or by sea. Because it's faster than roads. It's easier than roads. And they're going to ship it all out to this port area. Do you think that you would actually enrich yourself greatly if you had a spot on that river? If you had a spot, let's say, notice like Portland's a nice city. It does well for itself, right? Not even at the sea. Astoria is at the sea. Look at that. That's funny. Right down the river here from Portland is Salem. That's funny. Right up this way somewhere, there's a town called Damascus. Anyways, don't you think you would enrich yourself greatly if you actually got this part of the river? Because everything then coming up the river, because they want to get out to this port, because what's going to happen is these, and you'll see it in the Bible, let's just like fantasize that on either side of this river here would be Tsur and Sidon. And they are shipping the world over. So all you got to do is get your wares to them. That's it. So what if you controlled the river a few hundred miles up from where the mouth was, where everybody was taking their wares? Do you think you could enrich yourself? Does it at least make sense to take control of a river there, as opposed to hundreds and hundreds of miles up from your nearest seaport, knowing that there were all kinds of enemies at the end of that great journey. You're not going to have hardly anybody behind you that's shipping all kinds of great wares that you can tax. But you get a spot that's near the mouth of a great river, and let's say that has other sizable rivers emptying into it, so that you have people shipping from all over the place up this river. Get yourself a spot there, and now you're going to be making some money. And we know that had to be a good spot, because 4 years later, the Melech, or king of Babel, defeats Paro-Nekheh, and he sets up shop in this same place, Riblah. So what makes more sense? So now there's just a couple other things that I'm going to bring to your attention. And I hope this will help a little bit those who are very much great defenders of the King James translation. I'm not attacking you folks. I'm not. I was a King James only for a very long time, and I really believed that was the best translation. I even went as far for a little while there as like, that's the perfect word of God in English, right? And there's that GD word again. There's so many problems, folks. There's so many problems. You go to Psalms, the book of Psalms, and you can go to Psalm 60. All right, and Psalm 60, verse 1. Now it says to the chief musician upon, I'm going to try to read these transliterations of the names, Shushanaduth Miktam, David, to teach, when he strove with Aram Naharaim and with Aram Zobah, when Joab returned and smote of Edom in the valley of Salt 12,000. Now this is an event, and we can reference this event. In fact, if you have eSword and TSK cross-references, you can cross-reference this and figure out exactly what is being talked about. All we got to do is see in the TSK cross-reference as 2 Samuel 8:3. And it says, David smote also, it's actually Edad Ozer, the son of Rahab, king of, as he went to recover his border at Ner Parath. So we see it described a little different here, when he strove with Aram Naharaim. 763 is the number here. I've got Hamath up, and I've got Haran up. And that one's an interesting one. I don't know if I'm going to bring this up, bring it up on this video or not. Let's see. So, punch in 763. Remember, that's what this Aram Naharaim, as King James and many others, by the way, transliterate it. Let's see what it really is. Here we've got Aram, Nerim, so the plural of Ner, rivers. I see. And they tell us that it means Aram of the 2 rivers. Well, it's funny because it doesn't say 2 rivers. It would be something like Shunim. It's just rivers. Aram of the rivers. Oh, but the first entry of it says Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia? Well, that's weird, because aren't we all told that Mesopotamia is this area between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers? That's Mesopotamia there? So they're telling us Aram Narim is Mesopotamia? Well, that's weird. That's really weird. Because
I wonder if it should be pronounced Mesoamerica.
in 2 Samuel 8, we'll start in 8:3. And it says, I just read it. David smote also Idad Ozer, son of Rahab. He was the Melech or king of Tsuba, as he went to recover his border at the Ner Parath. Yes, and Tsuba with an A is the same as Aram Tsuba with an E. We know that just by this reference, because in this reference, Aram Tsuba is with the E, and here the Tsuba, or it's with an A over here, and it's with an E here. But it's the same place. It's also listed once as Hamath Tsuba, and it's the same place. And we know it's the same place because Edidozer is the king of it. Later on is when it's listed as Hamath Tsuba. And you can put 2 and 2 together, and you can figure that after David defeated Edidozer and he took over Tsuba from Aram, it was Aram that occupied Tsuba. Aram occupied many places in this area. That afterwards, we can see this King Toy of Hamath gave him presents because they had warred with one another. So later on, when we see it's referred to as Hamath Tsuba, I think you can figure it's called that because it was no longer under the dominion of Aram at that time. Okay? Now, it says after this, he defeated this Edidozer, son of Rahab, at Tsuba when he went to recover his border at the Ner Parath. Now it says what he took from him. This is a lot of stuff too. 1,000 chariots, 700 horsemen, 20,000 footmen. They use this word a lot, had all the chariot horses, but reserved for them 100 chariots. That word is used a lot. I don't know if it means what they say to us. It means hamstring, this okar, because they say it like with the name Yokeb, and grabbing the heel, okar. I'm not sure about that yet. But anyways, so in 8:5, it says when the Arami, so the people of Aram, in fact, it just says the Aram Damshak. So those, because Damshak was always controlled by Aram or the Arami. The Aram Damshak, they came to protect Edidozer because, of course, that was their ally. They were both Arami, king of Tsuba. As David, then he slew the Aramim, 220,000 men, 22,000 men, just right there. Now you remember, Damshak was at the north, and a place called Hatzer Oinon at the south of the description of the border. He slew this Edidozer when he went to recover his border at Parath. Are we to think that these cities are just setting in the middle of nowhere for no reason, or that they would be where they are and that a lot of fighting would take place amongst them, and that many people like Paro and Nekeh would come up to this area to fight against the king of Ashur for no reason? The thing that bothers me the most is that we can see from the descriptions of the territory of the tribe Asher with no U. There's the empire of Ashur with the U, or there's just the tribe of Asher, no U. We can see in the description of Asher that he occupies many areas that are very close to this. We can see that the Arami have cities like Mocha in the Bashan, which is the place that was taken from King Og, a place in which there were 60 cities, which you could not hope to fit in what they call the Golan Heights, which they say is Bashan. So all of these times that they're translating Aram Narim, Mesopotamia, here, Genesis 24:10, Mesopotamia, it's supposed to be Aram Narim. Deuteronomy 23:4, Mesopotamia. Judges 3:8, Mesopotamia. Judges 3:10, Mesopotamia. 1 Chronicles 19:6, Mesopotamia. Then Psalm 60 in verse 1, Aram Nehorem. Do you still trust the King James? And if he was going all the way over to Mesopotamia, Damascus is coming to their aid. Does that even begin to make sense?
Here they come to save the day.
Now, we know that Aram, as a kingdom, has a chief city. Yes, we do. We do. I'll show you that. Isaiah 7:8. For the head or the Rosh of Aram, not Syria, Aram, is Damshak. The head of Aram is Damshak. And the head of Damshak is Rizin. It was the king. The head of Aram is Damshak. Here in Psalm 61, that we were just at, when he strove with Aram Narim. Well, when he's striving with Aram Tzuba is when he defeated Ededozer, which you can find in 2 Samuel 8:3 and 2 Chronicles 18:3. When he strives with Tzuba, he strives with who? I still have it up. It says, and then when Aram Damshak came to protect Ededozer, king of Tzuba, Aram Narim, Aram Damshak. Is it not the same place? You would say, well, how could it be the same place? Narim? Are there multiple rivers in or around Damshak to make it Aram Narim? Well, yes, there are. And I'll show you that. 2 Kings 5:12. This is when this man, Naaman, he was, it says he was a leper. I don't know if that's the right disease or not, okay? But he was diseased. And he went to Elisha, the prophet, the successor of Eliah. They translate it Elisha. And that's when he told them to dip in the Yarden 7 times. And it pissed him off. He got a little hot under the collar. And he says in the English translation, are not Abane and Parpar Nair of Damshak better than all the waters of Yisrael? May I not wash in them and be clean? Now they have a little asterisk by Abana, and they want to say it's Amane, but it's not. You can check Amane, and it's in a different location, and it's actually some type of high place. This Abane is probably far more accurate. They asterisk a lot of this stuff, and you've got to be very careful about their asterisks. Don't just trust them. And Parpar, to Ner, they're right here. Ner, they're Neruth, Damshek. So in Psalm 60, verse 1, when David, when he strove at Aram Nerim and at Aram Zuba, we check 2 Samuel 8, 2 Chronicles 18, and we see that he strove with Zuba and Damshek. We saw that Damshek is the head of Aram, and that there are multiple Ner in Damshek. Do you think it's even remotely appropriate for anyone to translate Aram Nerim as Mesopotamia? Excuse me. In fact, there's a lot of cities that are right on top of the tribal inheritances that are occupied by the Arami. This idea that the Arami would be that far away is just, well, it doesn't harmonize with biblical fact. Now, it's my thought, I can't prove this. I have to go a lot by just what information I can gather, that these 2 Ner, the Abane and the Parpar, would probably empty into the Parath. One of them's even called Parpar. Maybe it got its name because it empties into Parath. There's a lot of Pars, so not sure. But I would imagine Damshek is where it was because it was a very strategic location. Now, there's something else that should help us out in figuring out this north border situation and where Parath was. And it's up in Ezekiel. I'll scroll up there. Ezekiel 27:18. And I'll take this screen right here, and I'll do it in live time because I've been pausing this and finding these verses so that it doesn't take too long. All right, we have 27:18. And let's go right to the start. 27:1 is the word of Yahweh. It came again unto me, saying, Now thou son of man, Ben Adam, just like what Yeshua called himself. He called himself Ben Adam or Beni Adam. He is the son of Adam, Ben Adam. Now, thou Ben Adam, take up a lamentation for Tzur. Where did I tell you Tzur was? It was most likely that Tzur was at the mouth of the Parath on the sea. The funny thing is, and it gives this great description of Tzur and where it got a lot of its materials from to make its ships and how it got all of its wealth. It even says that men of Paras and men of Lud and men of Put were in its army. Probably that it had the kind of wealth to hire mercenaries like that. Very large city, right? And it had sailors from Tharshish. I mean, people from all over the world were in and out of this place, right? But the interesting part is in 27:16, it does say, Aram, thy merchant, By reasons of the multitude of wares of thy making, they occupied in thy fairs with emeralds, purple, broidered work, fine linen, coral, and agate. And I told you, Aram controlled some cities along that northern border area. And they would have gotten their wares to Tsur how? By a dusty road? Or by the Parath, which was promised multiple times by Yahweh to be their northern border. It even says concerning Tsur, Judah and the land of Yisrael, they were thy merchants. They traded into your market wheat, and panag. They don't even know what that is exactly. Honey, oil, and balm. And now in 27:18, and Damshak, your merchant, in the multitude of your wares of thy making, for the multitude of all thy riches, in the wine of halboon and white wool. Dan. You know why Dan was their merchant? Because Dan took a city right near Rahab, kind of far from Sidon, and it would have been close too. Now, Dan had another port in Yupa, but they would have been very close to this Ner, or river, as well. Damshak. They were thy merchant. Why? Well, because they sailed down the Parath to the mouth of Parath at the Great Sea, where Tsidon resided and where Tsur resided. You see, Parath is always described as Ner Gadul, a great river. A river that great would have a lot of tributaries, and it might run a long way. The tributaries might run a long way. You can have a river that maybe is not as great, but is quite long. So there would be a good reason that there were so many cities or peoples, Tsur, Sidon, Hamath, Aram, Damshak, Tsuba, that Peroah Nekeh fought against Asher to control, that Nebuchadnezzar then fought against Peroah Nekeh to control. It even says in the Bible that at one point in time, Judah, not Yisrael, Judah had control of these places. That's how important they were. That's how important they were. I'm not seeing. Where's the great river? Where's the great river? Not there. Not there. And what are they fighting over in the Golan Heights, huh? What are they fighting over? I don't know. I honestly don't know. Because so much is a ruse over there. It's nonsense. Just like building the temple. Because as soon as they do that, they don't have many more years of bullshitting people before people start smelling out that something's wrong. It's all crap. From the Masoretic Nikudot turning Obri or Obrith into Hebrew, to this nonsense about the Bible taking place in the Middle East. Why is it, do you think, that so many other people call Yahweh the desert God? So there's a lot more that is going to be proven. I've already started on the paper about
All right. So that was quite an interesting study. And well, there's still 11 people here watching me go through my afternoon review. I wanted to go over these two videos and tie it into with what I'm going to be teaching very soon. The video started out, and I just was trying to give people something to watch, listen to, learn from, have some chat room time. But it started out as a mirror of Ben from Vat City doing a new video. So I think we'll close with that also, probably the first half of it, because the last half is mostly music. But let's do that. Get ready for a good Bible study the next time the Lord's will is that I'm ready to present. So here's Ben.
Thinking about making for a long time, but number one, I didn't have like good videos of everything. I still don't. They're still not great. To make it really good, I should go back with like a drone and stuff. But I got some stuff I want to show, and I've been thinking about for years since I've lived up here. But I never made it because I didn't feel like I was really qualified to make it. But I think I am qualified at least to just show what I see. See, I believe in science. See, bitch, I am a scientist. Anyway, so, and I might not talk through the whole thing. I'm going to show videos, and some of them might not be talking, just showing stuff. But I want to start with this, John 2:18. On account of this, the Jays demanded, "What sign can you show us to prove your authority to do these things?" Jesus answered, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up again." "This temple took 46 years to build," the Jays replied, "and you are going to raise it up in 3 days?" But Jesus was speaking about the temple of his body. After he was raised from the dead, his disciples remembered that he had said this. Then they believed the scripture and the word that Jesus had spoken. Okay, so obviously there's the first meaning, which is that the temple is your body, and about the resurrection. Jesus would be, raised from the dead, literally, bodily, after 3 days, right? The scripture is magic. It's literally alive. Okay, it's insane. The second meaning here, you see in this story, the Jays represent materialist atheists, you could say. There's nothing new under the sun. Okay, in the 46 years, the temple is the body, right? So the 46 years which build the body are the 46 chromosomes of human DNA. Try not to damn cry while I'm doing this. So this is the craziest thing. Second meaning, right? You can read it.
Ben can't think of the number 46 of when he was a young scholar and he read the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe, and it all happened to be about the number 46. So that's probably why he's smiling.
Since the temple is the body, the 46 years to build, like they believe that the body is the product of the 46 chromosomes, like evolution, like they're materialist atheists. Like the body is not a product of consciousness. It's not like you can just raise your body back up. And he says, yes, I can. Because Jesus knows everything is, a product of basically him, the spirit, consciousness, and anything is possible. Because it's all actually done through the spirit, and the material causal chain is an illusion. So the 46 years, like them, they represent the materialist atheists believing in evolution, Darwinism, and materialist science. It's insane. So crazy. And Jesus is saying, no, everything is created through the spirit. Everything is created through consciousness, through belief. Reality is what you believe. That is reality. That's why it's important to believe good things. But the third meaning that I've been thinking about. And it goes back, I think, also to like temples of unhewn stone, altars of unhewn stone. And in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and he created the garden. And literally there's, it could, this is, I think the third meaning I've been thinking of is literally structures not built materially, but built by consciousness. So yeah, it is his body, but it's also the temple, and it's his body, and it's like so crazy. So yeah, so what I've been thinking about, a third meaning, is this also literally about not only the 46 chromosomes, but literally structures being built by consciousness. And was the garden, like Alan had talked about before and other people, literally structures, like he talks about in Genesis. It's like a mist. There was no man to till the earth, and it hadn't rained yet. It says a mist went up over the whole earth, but he says the words are actually like canals. And I was thinking the garden, it could even be some of these old structures and everything. Like everything was just set up literally like a garden, the whole world. And it's literally just all created. There's nothing natural. It's just different ages, and it's all creation, either created by God or by angels or by man. And the creations of man obviously are very crude. Okay, so I'm going to get into this now. These are these star holes that I find everywhere up here. Okay, and these are the ones I'm going to show are close to my house, but I find them also way back in the woods where there's no civilization. Like I've followed deer trails for miles. I'll find these things everywhere. They're perfectly smooth on the inside. Okay. They're either perfectly smooth round, or they're these star-shaped holes. And I've thought of they go very deep into the rock too, but they don't protrude through the other side. And originally I thought maybe it was a jackhammer bit. First of all, they're very old. You can see the lichen growth. It takes a very long time for this lichen to grow. And in many of them, the lichen is grown inside the holes. The circular ones are perfectly smooth. The star ones are perfectly smooth. I thought originally, could this be a jackhammer bit, which are kind of shaped like that, which obviously I'm familiar with from work. But you would never drive a jackhammer bit in straight in and be able to get it out. The other thing is there's no explanation for these at all, because they're always in the center of rocks. They never protrude through the outside. Okay. And what is actually happening is rocks fracture at these points, and you'll see these holes in the middle. And I know this because when I was building houses up here, they blast these home sites out of the mountain. They blast the rock out. And this isn't from like drilling and putting dynamite in. I've thought of all of this, but they blast it out. And when the rock fractures, you find these holes inside. And I don't know what they are, but this is stone. Okay. But maybe it was concrete at some time, or I don't know what it is. But these are like molds of whatever was here, like pipes, something perfectly circular, perfectly smooth. They go very deep in, but they don't protrude out the backside ever. But a lot of times rocks will split open, and you'll see in the center of them, they have these holes. Perhaps the star-shaped holes could be like a braided cable or something like that, like a really fat braided cable. You could imagine maybe it would make that shape. But I mean, it's just bizarre. It's really bizarre. They're perfectly smooth inside. I mean, I've drilled a lot of holes too, and there's always going to be tooth marks, like, spiraling, rifling, whatever you want to call it. You can tell you drilled it or jacked it with a hammer or a chipping gun or a hammer drill or whatever. There's no disguising that. And these things are not like that. And like I said, these are near my house just for convenience, and I don't bring my phone or camera with me when I go out trekking the trails. And walking deer trails and crawling in thickets and way out from civilization. But you'll find these everywhere where they didn't blast. There's never been a house. There's never been anything. You'll find these all over the place. That's what I'm talking about, the star hole. There's no way to drill this out. And if you sank a bit in there, you'd never get the bit out. And they're so deep, it's ridiculous anyway. And they're everywhere. It doesn't make any sense. You can see this rock. It's two halves of the same rock that fractured apart. This is just right around my house. There's at least, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 of them just right around here. I found them in other places too. It's like sometimes other rocks will fall in them. It's hard to even tell how deep they are, but they never come out the other side. Very smooth on the inside. So I don't know what they are, but they're not natural. That's for sure. There's some kind of creation. All right. The next thing I'm going to show is these protrusions I've noticed in the riverbanks. Okay, this is right behind my house. This is clearly artificial. This is concrete, obviously. I don't know how old, but I'd say probably around 100 years old or over 100 years old. The house I'm in, the cabin's over 100 years old anyway. And there's no house on the other side there. I don't know why someone did this. I guess for erosion, or I wonder if these were used as canals at some point, or I don't know. It's probably between like 100 and 200 years old. But you'll find all over in these creeks, even where there's no houses, even when you go way back, you'll find like concrete. Some of it's clearly concrete, some of it's not. And a lot of it even blends in, where it's like you almost can't tell if it's concrete or stone. Like some of it's clearly concrete, some of it's clearly stone, but some of it is hard to really tell. And now I'm going down by the main river. I want to show there's these protrusions from the riverbank, not made of concrete. These are made of stone, and they're perfectly right angles, or they were. You know, you could tell at one point, and perfectly straight, like just in a way that is not natural. And not natural in a way that, I mean, people can't even do this and wouldn't do this, and it doesn't even make sense. This isn't concrete. These are stones. And I know I don't have the best videos either here. I should come back here with a drone. But if you see these things, they protrude out from the riverbank. They're perfectly straight. They're all fractured and broken up, of course. Makes me think of, yeah, like, was this part of the garden? Like, are these part of like the star fort system? Was the whole Earth some kind of like star fort system, the garden? And when we were cast out, some kind of fall, like Solomon says, all the foundations of the earth are out of course. Like, are these part of the foundations of the earth? It's very strange. They're perfectly, or you can see they were at least perfectly straight, perfectly square. And yeah, it reminds me of the star forts. And it reminds me of, like Alan used to say, the mist went out and covered the whole earth. It didn't rain because everything was irrigated. I mean, like it was canals. The mist, that word is like he says, an intentional mistranslation. It's really like the whole earth was irrigated by canals. These things, I'm telling you, they're stone. I'll trunch across. I'll put my river shoes on and go get up close one day, or get a drone and go out here. They're all over. They're at like regular intervals along the creek bank and the river bank. It's just very strange. And I'll show later. I'll show right after this, like, and there's no houses on the other side. There's no access there. On the side I'm standing on, there is a road along the side, but on that side, there's there's nothing developed. And as you get way down to where it meets the bigger river, there's a bridge that crosses, and there is artificial riprap, what they call like stones placed by humans. And I'm going to show that. I'm going to show how crude it is. Like, and the stuff that's placed by humans is obvious. It's never perfect. And once I saw this stuff, I just couldn't unsee it. Like, there's literally nothing natural. Everything is created. I don't know by who or how or what, but there is nothing natural. There's just like different ages of creation and different levels of technology. Like the creation of the technology of God or the garden or the oldest technology was obviously the most perfect and the highest, and even nature itself, like a seed or a human or animal body, is like the highest technology you could possibly imagine. Which also, brings us back to the arrogance of believing that you can improve on the human form or on nature. Okay, and this is, look, there, I went down by the bridge here, where they're trying to, protect the bridge and the road here, and they do actually have access to the other side just from the. It's very strange. They're perfectly, or you can see they were at least perfectly straight, perfectly square. And yeah, it reminds me of the star forts. And it reminds me of, like Alan used to say, the mist went out and covered the whole earth. It didn't rain because everything was irrigated. Like it was canals. The mist, that word is like he says, an intentional mistranslation. It's really like the whole earth was irrigated by canals. These things, I'm telling you, they're stone. I'll trunch across. I'll put my river shoes on and go get up close one day, or get a drone and go out here. They're all over. They're like regular intervals along the creek bank and the river bank. It's just very strange. And I'll show right after this, and there's no houses on the other side. There's no access there. On the side I'm standing on, there is a road along the side. But on that side, there's nothing developed. And as you get way down to where it meets the bigger river, there's a bridge that crosses. And there is artificial riprap, what they call like stones placed by humans. And I'm going to show that. I'm going to show how crude it is. Like, and the stuff that's placed by humans is obvious. It's never perfect. And once I saw this stuff, I just couldn't unsee it. Like, there's literally nothing natural. Everything is created. I don't know by who or how or what, but there is nothing natural. There's just like different ages of creation and different levels of technology. Like the creation of the technology of God or the garden or the oldest technology was obviously the most perfect and the highest, and even nature itself, like a seed or a human or animal body, is like the highest technology you could possibly imagine. Which also, brings us back to the arrogance of believing that you can improve on the human form or on nature. Okay, and this is, look, there, I went down by the bridge here, where they're trying to, protect the bridge and the road here, and they do actually have access to the other side just from the bridge right here, but not way down where I'm showing all these right angle star fort points or whatever they are. I don't know what they are, but you can see the work of humans. Modern man is obviously done by modern man. It's very crude. The things that I'm talking about are indistinguishable. You know what I mean? It's insane. This is some stuff I tried to look it up just to see what they say about it. In my town, everything. There's nothing to ever say that they built these things. They didn't. It shows different kinds of riprap, they call it, and what they do to try and preserve the riverbanks. And none of it looks like these perfect star points I was showing before in the video. It all looks like either, this gravel or stone they pour, or concrete, clearly concrete steps, or it'll stack these big blocks. It's very crude. It's never these perfectly straight lines like the ones I was showing before. It's never these perfectly right angles like this. Like this is what people can do, It's nothing similar to the original creation. This is what people can do. This is what's made by modern man. It's very obvious what's made by modern man. It's unmistakable. That's what modern man makes. It's unmistakable. See, this is a riprap. Like, I was looking even in searching my own town. When did they ever build these things on the riverbank? No, you can't find anything about it. Here's the bridge. And they're working right by here to try and preserve. You can see in the water here, they built some kind of steps at some point. But it's always obvious what's done by man. These star points that I was showing are not obvious, okay? Like these. Like these perfectly right angles. It's just totally different. They're perfect. It's completely different. This. See this? Completely different. They're perfect. They're just perfect. Look at this. What is this? It's got to be like a point of a star fort or something. This is like the garden. These are the foundations of the earth that are out of course. At least that's, I'm not a geographer or geologist or whatever. I'm just saying what I see. But I know that this is not natural. There's nothing natural here. And the last thing I want to show is the mountains themselves. I wouldn't even call them mountains. These escarpments that rise up, they're structures. 100%. You can see doors, windows in them, perfectly right angles. You can even see courses of stone. What were like courses of stone or brick or something. You can see windows and doors that are like half buried in dirt, just like the buildings. I'll show the building in Philly I have too, in the basement. You go like 12 feet underground. It's just all windows and doors bricked up. These are windows and doors. Like something snapped in my brain and I can't unsee it. I can't see it any other way. I know these are structures of some kind. None of this is natural. There's literally nothing natural in the world. Like in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. He created the earth. It's insane. It's a creation, everything. And I just keep coming to new levels of like capitulation with how literal everything is. Just like Jesus says, if you understand it like a child, you'll understand it perfectly. There is nothing occult. It's all bullshit. There's nothing hidden. There is no occult. It doesn't exist. It's all just nonsense to warp your mind and confuse you. If you just look like a child and read the scriptures like a child, it's completely plain and obvious. There's actually nothing to figure out, period. Absolutely nothing to figure out. Everything is created. There's nothing natural. The only question is, when, where, who knows? I don't even know if that's how time works. Who knows how it works. But are these the foundations of the earth that are out of course? And was maybe the whole earth the garden, a star fort system, or what have you?
Well, that's most of the. Now he shows the peculiar points like this and goes on for a little while. But I'm going to be dropping off now to get some more Bible study done on the many different times Persian kings praised the God of King David, the God of the Hebrews, from whence our Lord and Savior Jesus came from, and just see if I can't tie that into the actual time of the Gentiles. Because when Jerusalem fell, it was the start of judgment, and they only came back to get finished off. I'm afraid it was never going to be anything but a judgment. And in the meantime, before then, I hope you enjoyed that almost 3 hours. It's a flat earth nation. Mud flood was Armageddon. You know, I'm never going to tell you anything else. Why would I? I'm trying to prove that I have your best interest at heart. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho.